Yeah, let's talk about Nigel Farage going to the Conservative Party conference, because I found this interesting. And for the first time in a long time, it felt that there was some movement in British politics. The ground was shaking. And so something was changing. And so the tectonic plate was shifting.
Oh, goodness me. A centrist dad got let in. Come on.
Yes, actually, it's exactly what happened.
No.
But this was remarkable for many reasons, and may indicate that there is something that will change in the long distant future. God only knows, but look, I think it's worth talking about. Before we begin, go and support us by signing up and watching my premium video on why liberalism is a universal asset. You can buy this if you don't want to sign up, and for £1.89 or $2.30, and understand why liberalism as applied without any kind of tradition or Christian conservatism is going to dissolve everything that we have, and which is why we're watching everything around us become liquidated. I think it's genuinely important for people to have this understanding as Nigel Farage arrives at the Conservative Party conference, because this, if there's one thing you can say about Nigel Farage, is he's not an insane woke liberal. He's a man who likes this country and has worked his entire life to make this country what ideally it should be, which is sovereign. And that God thanks for your success in this regard.
He put in a lot of work.
Yeah, 25 years. And he took all the slings and arrows, and UKIP around him. They all did the good work, the Lord's work, and we technically got what we wanted, right? So that's a start, right? A step in the right direction. It could have gone entirely differently. All of the forces that were arrayed against him wanted it to be entirely differently, but he came out with a win after this, even if it was kind of spoiled at the end by, of course, the Conservatives. So the weird thing is that Nigel Farage, 25 years ago, was a member of the Conservative Party, probably longer than that, actually. He was a member of the Conservative Party, left the Conservative Party, joined or formed UKIP, and then campaigned to get Brexit done. And so, of course, he's not welcome in the Conservative Party because he represents a quote-unquote radical view of what conservatism could be, which is forward-thinking, patriotic, and decent. Doing what the British public actually want. And we know the British public want it because they voted for it. And so he was, of course, not the sort of person. He was kind of persona non grata, I understand.
What is your crime? Well, I represented the British people.
I like the country.
Get out.
And so,
the new ones or the old ones.
Yeah.
Well, yes. But so anyway, Nigel Farage, in his capacity as a journalist for GB News, was invited.
So that's how he got in.
Yes, but it's entirely in previous eras. Even if Nigel Farage had been like, "Hey, I'm a journalist now. Can I come?" They would have said no, right? Because of course, you can. Right. Okay. Sorry. Before we get to that, you can see just how popular
they absolutely adore him.
Yeah, how popular Nigel Farage is with the Conservative base. Because the Conservative base are obviously generally pro-Brexit, generally pro-traditional values and traditional Britishness. I mean, just look at him. He's obviously the superstar there. How many MPs were getting that kind of response?
They don't.
It's not just there either. Like I've said this before.
Of course it's not.
I wonder what you make of this title, to be honest, because I don't really know how to explain to him. So when I speak to Forrest, I'm just like, yeah, he's the de facto leader of the opposition because no one cares about Keir Starmer.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
So
So as you can see, everyone, and these are all the young people in the Conservative Party. They're all like, oh my God, it's Nigel Farage, like this. And he's one of the most consequential politicians of the last 50 years, even though he was never an MP.
It's true.
And it's like, okay, well, this is interesting, isn't it? And I found,
oh gosh,
I found this, which is a lot of people basically being a bit concerned because they're like, hang on a second, Europe, because of proportional representation, is going a bit right wing, as in one of the advantages of proportional representation is that it allows a small number of MPs or politicians to be elected, but then they get a kind of small structure around them in the SPADs and the assistants, attendants, but then they start getting media attention because, of course, they're elected politicians. And so they can start building a base from which to grow a political movement. And so actually, in a way, the European liberals were right about proportional representation. It's pro-democracy. It actually is pro-democracy. It actually allows right-wing or dissident movements to challenge the power structures and actually build a power base of their own. And this is why they're going to ban the AfD, because the AfD are going to take over Germany if they don't. Right? In Britain, we don't have that. in Britain, we have a very rigid two-party system with first past the post, which has been, I mean, Nigel Farage was butting up against this constantly with UKIP, getting 4 million votes and 1 MP and things like this, right? So it's very clear that this is something they're concerned about. And they're like, well, why, what happens in a country where the political winds of the West are going towards the right, and a country that doesn't have a right-wing party that is able to get into power? What happens? Well, like I said, you get Nigel Farage being the leader, de facto leader of that movement, arriving at the Tony Blair-esque Conservative Party conference like a rock star. Hi folks, we've rolled out a new feature on the website, which is the ability to pay for an individual piece of content. So usually it's £5 a month every month to subscribe to all of the content on the website. But I appreciate there are going to be people who simply don't want to do that. They would be interested instead in purchasing a single piece of content for a lower amount, and they've got a particular niche that they're interested in watching. And so they don't want every single piece of content. They just want this one thing. So we've introduced this function where you can just simply purchase the one thing for £1.89, which I think is about $2.30 at the current exchange rates. And then that's just yours forever. So there's no sort of commitment there. There's no rolling subscription. It's just that one thing. So that's an option now that's on the website. It's completely live. It's completely available. And please go and enjoy it. And we'll see you all very soon. And so you get the centrist Blairite consensus. In fact, it might be worth watching this, actually, or at least a part of this, because you can hear the fear in their voice. They're very, very concerned about this. So this is Emily Matlis's podcast called The News Agents, which apparently lots of centrist Blairites watch.
Sponsored by the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering.
Yeah.
That's how you know that they're...
That's how you know that
they're not part of the state.
Yeah, that's how you know they've got a genuinely objective view on the news. But let's watch this.
Look, I think it's time we sort of called this what this is. And if you talk to some of the more... previously what you might say moderate people here, moderate conservatives, cabinet ministers or whatever, they will talk in these terms. There has been a slow burn hostile takeover of the Conservative Party. And it started probably in about 2013 to 2014. We spoke so much about the idea of a hostile takeover by the left of the Labour Party. The reason that stood out more is because there was a moment of realisation. It was the moment that Corbyn was elected within the Labour Party. What's happened with the Conservative Party is it has been done by increments, little by little, starting under Cameron, accelerating under May, Johnson, and now Sunak.
I just going to mention any of these people.
You see, I don't think you can call it a takeover because the doors have been opened by successive Conservative leader after Conservative leader. They have allowed this to happen because they thought that was their best way of staying in power. Whether it was David Cameron realising that he had to give the referendum to people, allowing him, he thought, more time to win that and stay in power, or everything that's happened subsequently.
Indeed, but the point is, what I'm saying is that however the mechanism or the means that it's happened, and that has profound consequences for British politics. And the difference is, I think one of the differences between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party is that the Labour Party, the right of the Labour Party fought it. They fought it, and they were very good at it because they've had experience in it before. The right of the Labour Party always fights. Arguably, actually, they were much harder than the left were. If the left had the sort of toughness and the steel that the right of the Labour Party had, they'd still be in charge now. The difference is, and I was talking to a Conservative minister about this yesterday, the difference is that what you might say is that the left of the Conservative Party, frankly, has less guts and is a bit more like the soft left of the Labour Party. As you say, Emily, they appease. They give a little bit more, and they give a little bit more, and if we just give them this, they'll go away, and we can reach a happy accommodation. It's never happened, it's not going to happen, and you end up in the situation that they're in now, where basically it is Farage's party now. And in a sense as well, we should say, that is a trend which is mirrored across Europe, right? We've seen the sort of Faragiste type parties either take over or displace the more mainstream Conservative Party. That is what we see at this conference all around us.
Well, that's good news, isn't it?
It would be if any of that was true.
I know, right?
I don't think a single word
The far-right coup that began with David Cameron.
What? These people need to define what they mean by far right.
You know what's really cringe is this is the most listened to political podcast in all of the UK.
Really?
Because it's sponsored by Global. It's got so much corporate money behind it. There are billboards all over London for it because of that reason.
I can name the number of right-wing MPs in the Conservative Party on one hand.
Of course you can.
This is just stupid.
And you're probably being generous when you do it.
Right.
So, but I think the important thing to remember about the terms left and right is there are perspective terms, right? So if you're as far left as these people are, then even Nigel Farage, who I think is actually quite a moderate centre-right figure, seems like Mussolini, right?
There's a reason they call them Farages.
Yes.
Next to Phalanges over there.
Right. So it's okay. Let's take that perspective. But it's interesting that that's how they feel about this. And then when we compare this to Farage's response as merely a journalist going to the Conservative Party conference, he is the rock star there. Yeah. There is not a single Conservative politician, as Boris was obviously absent, not a single Conservative politician who has any kind of pull like Farage. And if they're going, well, this is Farage's party now.
Okay.
God, if only. like, God, please, look, I've never prayed before as an atheist. Please let it become Farage's party.
Okay, let me be put a bit of concern in there.
Go ahead.
First of all, caveats, Nigel Farage has done wonders for the country in terms of Brexit. He's worked really hard. However, he only cares about one issue. I haven't seen him fight on many cultural issues at all. And if he is working on part of the controlled opposition, if he is becoming an establishment figure, whilst the biggest financial backer of GB News is bidding to take over the Daily Telegraph as well, so they'll own the centre-right. At the same time, they're pushing their most prominent centre-right politician into the Conservative Party. It seems to me this is not Farage's party at all. This is someone else. There's a puppet master here at play trying to take over the country.
It's entirely possible. I think it comes down to a battle of wills. So I have seen Farage speak in prior eras of all of the things we're concerned about. I mean, he did appear in front of that billboard with the migrants just marching in, being like, "Are we really going to have this?"
Yeah, but he only ever speaks about immigration.
Sure, but he has
Which is important, but
he has spoken about wokeism in universities. He has spoken about free speech with Lawrence Fox. He retweeted Lawrence Fox being like, "This is very concerning." So I think that Farage's political instincts are broadly aligned with us. Sure. I don't see anything objectionable, and I think the question is, how much will would Farage have? Now, I mean, one could look at his dogged determination towards Brexit and say, well, he's clearly a man who can be committed when he wants to be. Like 25 years is a lot of time to take out of your life as a businessman to campaign on an issue you clearly have sincere beliefs on. And so, okay, I'm actually...
No, the will is there. He is disappointed that he didn't get put in the House of Lords when he stood all of us down.
Yeah.
The election. Biggest mistake of his life. Biggest mistake in the country, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Brexit Party had a lot of momentum and power at that time.
The Conservatives should have taken them in.
Took me a long time to forgive him for that. However, he's annoyed that he didn't get in the Lords, and now he wants to become part of the establishment. This is his way in.
Yeah. So the question is about...
So he has the will.
See, that's the question. So the question is, what can be done to the establishment? So can the establishment summon the will to resist Nigel Farage? And actually, I'm not sure that they can.
Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson together.
Well, Boris, I think, is just a wet who...
It doesn't matter. They both care about being in the establishment. They both care about their own political careers enough to have the will to combine. And with those two figures, people love both of them so much.
They absolutely do.
They would take over.
They would. But the question is, would Farage have an agenda that he would implement? And I think that he might, actually. Right, I actually would. If anyone in Britain, I could put any kind of faith in to say, look, we are going to reduce immigration. We are going to strip away a bunch of Blairite laws. Yeah. We are going to do these things. I mean, like on the plus side, Farage being at GB News means that he's going to be preeminently aware of Ofcom and the problem with Ofcom. Things like that. Things like this. These can all be undone.
You're winning me over,
right? And if anyone in the country is poised to not only move into a space where that could happen and have the will and knowledge and intent in what they're going, it's got to be Farage, right? And so the response to this I find very interesting, because the Conservative Party is in a moment of profound weakness that I don't think they've ever actually been in before, right? And so it's not just, okay, here's the right man, he's the right man at the right time.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who's not been following the polls, the Conservative Party is on track to get the historic defeat. No party will have been defeated as badly as the Conservative Party is going to be defeated next year if the polls maintain as they are, right? So for reference, John Major was the worst defeat that any party has had in 1997 to Tony Blair. Now, Tony Blair, whatever you think of him, he is the Dark Lord for a reason. He was a brilliant politician, still is. Yeah. You can't contest that, right? And so, and John Major, of course, not being anyone's idea of a brilliant politician. So John Major is very much a sort of placeholder character, gets crushed by Tony Blair, fine. But no one thinks Keir Starmer is a brilliant politician. He's in fact a very John Major-esque figure. And yet he's on track to get a bigger win over the Conservatives now than Blair had over Major. So I think the Conservatives are very, very aware that things are looking very dire. What do you say, Callum?
Your optimism is something. So the worry on the table for anyone looking at this is 13 years.
Yes.
They've had 13 years, that party. Yes. They've had human beings come and go who have said all the right things, that they will do all the right things, and done none of them.
Yes.
Never implemented them.
Yes.
I can't find myself believing that none of those human beings actually wanted to implement them. I think some of them definitely did and could not.
Yeah.
So your hope is that, well, they're desperate. They'll let Farage take over because it will keep them in power, basically, as a party. And hopefully he'll be the magic one who can suddenly, within that system, implement what needs to be done.
Well,
and I look at myself and think, I don't trust that system. And also, I don't think he must know he can't trust that system to actually allow him to implement anything. And that's why there's the worry of, if he did this, do I just kind of see him as a traitor? Because
okay,
so that's the worry.
You need someone who can change that. You can't work within the system. It's someone who can change it, like Tony Blair did. Because would he do that?
Prime Minister Nigel Farage of the Brexit Party, or Prime Minister Nigel Farage of Reclaim, or the Farage's Party, I trust.
Okay.
Prime Minister Nigel Farage of the Conservative Party just fills me with terror that I'm going to look on him for the rest of time as someone who was a Maloney.
Right. So there are obviously significant concerns, and the question is, would Farage be able to generate enough insurrectionist momentum within the Conservative Party, and would he have the ruthlessness to simply purge all of those people that he felt was in the opposition?
If he could properly take it over, then
I think
we could trust.
So anyway, just getting back to this narrative quickly. So this was a fascinating thing that came out the other day, where Sunak was just asked, well, would Nigel Farage be welcome in the Conservative Party? And Sunak actually said, it's a broad church. I welcome lots of people who want to subscribe to our values, and the thing I care about is delivering for the country and more people. As we've seen at this conference, we've got record attendance. I don't think they had record attendance, actually. Right. But again, the fact that he didn't say no, and this is essentially him saying, yeah, of course, Farage would be welcome.
He didn't say record high attendance, by the way. It could be record low attendance, couldn't it?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a great point. And it probably is actually. It probably is actually, because I've seen photos of the
empty rooms.
Yeah, the empty rooms. I mean, very, very good, very well observed. But the point that he didn't say no is very fascinating to me, because Sunak is a middle manager, right?
Yeah.
No one thinks Sunak is a leader. He didn't achieve his position by leadership. He achieved his position by management. And he must know that if Farage were to join the Tory party, it's over for him as the leader, right? Farage will be a magnetic figure, wherever he will just get up, give his sort of and again, finely honed rhetorical style.
You think he's having a good time as leader, though?
But
if I was Sunak,
not at all.
But he has the machine on his side. Boris Johnson had the membership. He had what Farage has. It wasn't enough. The machine was again. The machine got rid of Boris. The machine got rid of Truss and put Rishi in.
Absolutely. But Farage, I think, represents a different kind of character, because the thing about Truss, Boris, and all of the others is they have loyalty to the Conservative Party as an institution in and of itself. Whereas Farage clearly does not have that.
All right, but here's the question. Could people like Jeremy Hunt back Farage?
No.
Therefore, he wouldn't get the machine backing him. They'd be out to destroy him.
So he would have to destroy the machine.
Yeah.
Right? And so we had to talk about this before the podcast. Nobody really understands how the Conservative Party is run, which is really weird.
Yeah, because it's not run.
Well, but there must be some power structure inside of it that does something. Like, there must be. Right?
Why? They don't do anything.
Well, I mean, like,
they don't implement any policies.
But what I mean is they control how the party operates, right? So, like,
inside of it.
Yeah. So Boris gets removed, Truss gets removed, and Rishi gets put on. Well, I mean, it could be outside of it as well, right?
That you've just revealed to me, which is people outside of the machine seem to have far more power over this country than anyone inside.
But there has to be some mechanism within the machine that triggers to remove the person that the powers that be want out and impose a person that the people themselves don't want. Right? There has to be a mechanism inside the party for that to happen.
Not just bankers and press colliding. And
could be, but there has to be someone in the party who pulls the trigger and says, right, you're out, Boris. You're out, Truss, right? There has to be some cabal.
Is that person really free to make that decision?
Sorry? I'm not saying they're free or not,
okay.
But there has to be someone with their hand on the bloody lever.
Does there?
Right? Of course there does.
Why?
Because otherwise it wouldn't happen.
I just think it's like a car that's been driving for so long and now it's going down a hill and the driver's jumped out like miles back and the car is still going down that hill.
It's entirely possible. But what I mean is on a direct practical level, to get a vote to remove Boris, someone has to trigger the vote, right?
Right. So any MP can do that, though. Anyone could go to the 1922 committee.
Right. Okay. So but there has to be a power structure around a cabal of MPs, the 1922 committee, and then whatever, lackeys or whatever that actually, deliver the notes or whatever. There has to be some kind of structure there. And that's what Farage essentially would have to purge, right?
Yeah, it's just lots of backroom conversations. It's people like Michael Gove and Dominic Cummings all saying, if we do this here,
Sure. But there has to be something that is in the party that's making it do the things that it, or at least influencing the things that it does, right? And so the question is, does Farage have the wit to be able to identify what these things are? And I'm not saying it'll be easy, because obviously it's very obscure. Because, in the Labour Party, it's very evident that Keir Starmer is in control of his party, and that obviously that Tony Blair is in control of Keir Starmer, right? It's very evident that he's the one making executive decisions, whereas in the Conservative Party, it's not evident. And that's what Farage essentially would need to do.
So he'd need to replace the chairman of the party, also the head of CCHQ, who selects the candidates, also the head of the 1922 committee, and then set up a new arm's length Quango or something of his own.
Absolutely. And this is all stuff, and we've got a great example of how this is done in Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer just purged not only Jeremy Corbyn, but almost all of the Corbynites. But the Labour Party lost something like 200,000 members when Keir Starmer took it over.
NEC members had to go.
Exactly. He purged all the NEC. He purged all. He just was like, no, you're out. You're out. You're out. You're out. Right? Okay, Nigel, you've got the model. You just need to be able to identify. No, you're out. You're out. Sorry, Jeremy Hunt, you're out. You're all out. Right? Everything's out. This is Farage's party now, and this I think is possible. Right? I think it could be done. It just requires the will, and just requires Nigel Farage to sit down one afternoon with a list of names just gone. Right?
Okay. So, politically, perhaps, but wider than that. The reason Rishi Sunak's in power right now is because the bankers all collaborated and said, no, we don't want Liz.
Yes.
And the financial institutions and the mainstream media.
And they pulled the strings, they paid the money.
Yeah. So he may be able to get rid of the politicians, but how can he handle the bankers and the press?
Well, in possibly a similar way to Jeremy Corbyn. Because Jeremy Corbyn relied on mass motion. Jeremy Corbyn got literally like 250,000 new Labour sign-ups because of there were a bunch of students who believed in what he said. Well, okay, there are going to be literally millions of patriotic British people who believe in what Nigel Farage says. Literally millions of us.
I like your optimism. It's good. I don't know how you agree,
no. It's not even just optimism. I'm just talking about what politically is possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. What could happen is if Nigel Farage comes in and goes, look, it'd be a Bloody Monday or something on the news, where it's just like all of these conservatives have just been fired, all the lackeys have just been fired, all the management. Yeah, exactly. And Nigel Farage is just like going, yeah, well, I think they were bad for the party, actually. And I'm the party.
Bringing the party into disrepute by saying that women don't exist.
Exactly. And all these sort of things, and collaborating with the far left and all this sort of stuff, right? And then, that would be national news. Everyone in the country would hear this. And if Farage was just come out on Sky News and go, right, so anyone who agrees with our Brexit agenda, we're going to make this a pro-Brexit party. Come and join the Conservative Party. We've cut down the membership, so it's not £30, it's £15 now. Come and join this party, and so suddenly it's totally feasible. Like none of this is like crazy, like off the table, right? And so just a quick thing, like it's not like Nigel Farage hasn't been very, very vocal on what he would do. Like look, the tax burden, the migration. And net migration as well, not just the channel crossings. He's on the money, on the right points, right? He goes on Good Morning Britain, and they're like, oh, well, I think the Tories are in trouble. I think the Tories are having a serious problem. Yeah, absolutely. And so he was asked, well, would you join the Tories? And he had said, at the moment, the answer would be no. And that's very interesting. So you've got the leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister saying, well, yeah, of course, Nigel Farage would be welcome. We're a broad church. And Farage said, no, as you are constituted at the moment, I wouldn't join. It's like, okay, this is advancing the dialectic, and this is drawing power to Farage himself, because they've got the doors open, and he's like, oh, you're not worthy of me.
It's true.
Actually, you're not worthy of me. And Farage, he's a very clever man. He knows what he's doing. He's a very experienced agent in this regard. And so, it's just, why would I join a Conservative Party that doesn't believe in anything?
Right.
Nigel, you're singing my tune, bro. Like this is why he's the star when he goes to this Conservative Party conference. He has an affirmative agenda. He knows what Britain should look like, and it doesn't look like that now. And if he were given any hint towards the reins of power here, I think we know that he would start acting in the right way. And so, yeah, like he obviously is well aware of the political position. Only if it became a real Conservative Party would I consider joining. Okay, I'm listening, Nigel. And I'll be, one of the first people banging the drum as you march along, my friend. This would be amazing. I would love to see you go in there and absolutely gut the Conservative Party, because one of the problems that we have in this country, and as Nigel has discovered to everyone's chagrin, is that there's just no alternative. People vote for Labour or Conservative. So it has to be one of these two parties that we have to go in and just hollow out, replace with our guys, and actually make it do what we want it to do.
So I've been saying that the Conservative Party needs to lose. It needs to be demolished so that they can have this battle of ideas and rediscover what they stand for.
Yes.
You think that will be the point that he'd enter?
I think next year. It is next year when the next
possibly. We don't know yet.
Oh, right. Okay. That's British politics, folks. But assuming it's next year, they are going to lose. And they're going to have a horrific crisis of conscience. Yeah. What are we doing? What do we stand for? Well, you actually have Nigel Farage literally waiting in the wings to say, look, I know.
This is what we could stand for.
Yeah, and this would be massively popular. This is what your base want. Yeah. And so it is entirely possible that we could see in another sort of 5 years' time, a Prime Minister Farage.
Wow.
It's not that it couldn't happen, right? That's the thing. And it would just require and really, I think all it requires is just an effort of will on the part of Nigel Farage himself. He would just have to want it.
Okay. I think he wants it more than anything.
Right. Like, wouldn't it be great to the end of Nigel Farage's story, Prime Minister Farage? Because then he could become a Lord of course. Yeah. And so, anyway, I'm not trying to introduce undue optimism. What I'm trying to say is, from a politically realist perspective, the doors are actually opening. Because politics is a series of sort of sliding blocks. And sometimes you can see a path forward.
Yeah.
And other times these paths are blocked. And at the moment, actually, the path is open. Like, actually, the way the things are aligning.
So much happenstance involved, and this is
exactly. If it wasn't like it is now, contingently, then it wouldn't be the case. But I actually think it is possible.
Love it. Callum's like really quiet on this one.
Good luck.
Nothing's easy, but we'll find a way and make one.
Oh, I'll lend my £15 to him. Don't worry.
Oh, absolutely, right? Like, if Nigel Farage said, I'm joining the Conservative Party, get in. It's like, okay, we're all in.
Yeah.
Like, we've all got to get in.
We're going to bring back that car meme.
Hey, man, if that's what it takes,
We were talking before the podcast of, the Peter Hitchens approach of two new parties could never work because people vote for the uni party. Yeah. Lawrence Fox has had polls out there and people agree with him on everything.
Yeah.
Yet they still turn up and vote for Labour.
Yeah. It's just congenital in the British mindset. We're such a traditional party. Traditional country.
Well, if only we were.
Well, yeah. But no, in the back of like every British person's mind, they are in some way like this.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Lads Hours, this one on Le Reddit question. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.